diabetes is also a result, a symptom of eating habits. Same thing with most heart disease. Even, like we're in a midlife guys group, like we can talk about erectile dysfunction, right? Like a lot of these things are related to the foods that we eat and don't eat.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're the Midlife guys. So last week, we discussed some of the goals that midlifers have during the summer months. One of those goals is health and wellness. So today, we wanted to take a deeper dive into midlifers' health and wellness journey by focusing on nutrition and eating healthier. To discuss this, we are joined by Andrew Duffy. Andrew has over 15 years of experience as an award-winning fitness trainer and health coach. He has over 12 certifications, including certified health coach, fitness nutrition specialist, behavior change specialist, performance enhancement specialist, weight management specialist, and more. He works with clients in person at Gold's Gym, at Willow Lawn, and at ACAC and Short Pump. For those of you that don't know, that's here in Richmond, and also virtually. And fun fact, he can eat over 7 pounds of food in one sitting. Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Hi guys, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being here. That's impressive, the 7 pounds of food in one sitting. Another fun fact about Andrew is that, like Mike and me, he is a Richmond Spider, so go Spiders. Although I think we overlapped a couple years. We didn't actually know each other in college. We were connected. This might be kind of some interesting context for our viewers and listeners. We first got connected because Andrew listened to an episode with our combined mutual friend Braxton earlier in this year that we had on the podcast. Then he reached out to me and we kind of started talking, and those conversations led to talking about this topic around kind of health and wellness issues, and kind of led to the podcast here today, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, one of the goals that Mike and I have is to try to create space or community for midlifers to talk with one another, to share, to commiserate maybe. And I feel like it was kind of cool to see that work in person and kind of for me in that way. So I'm hoping others will have that experience too. But I just thought it was really kind of a cool full circle moment to have you on. So yeah, thanks again, Andrew, for joining us. We're excited for this conversation.
I appreciate it, guys. And yeah, shout out to Braxton for posting it on social media. I think like Braxton is a really intelligent, thoughtful guy. And watching the podcast that you guys had with him, the questions that you asked and the conversations that you had, and a lot of the topics that you address, I think are really important and impactful for how like any guy in the midlife range is able to live and like live a life that they love with the people that they care about. So thanks again to Braxton and also to you guys. And yes, go Spiders.
Yes, thank you for being here. So we're going to start out this conversation by discussing the why behind nutrition and eating healthier. Most midlifers know that they need to eat healthy, but they don't necessarily know the why behind the types of foods they need to be eating. In a 2024 study released by Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, indicated that people who follow a healthy diet from their 40s onwards were 43 to 84% more likely to be well-functioning physically and mentally at the age of 70 compared to those who did not. The study, which was presented at the American Society of Nutrition's annual conference that year, showed that higher intakes of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, unsaturated fats, nuts, legumes, and low-fat dairy were associated with greater odds of healthy aging. So, Andrew Duffy, and I have to qualify who I'm talking to because we've got two Andrews here today. I would love for you to unpack this for us. What is the why behind eating healthier and nutritious eating, and how do you advise midlifers like us to eat healthier?
Sure. So it's a great question. And like the summary of the study that you just provided reminds me of the food pyramid. Do you guys remember that? grown.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
now we have the My Plate, courtesy of the federal government, which is a better indicator of like really what like a plate should look like, not just like what kind of foods we should have, because food makes its way into our body by way of eating meals mostly, right, or snacks. And so like how do we conceptualize that in terms of meals? And the question that you asked, Mike, is I think a great one. Like why are we eating these foods? And I think instead of just like why those foods, like why is it the whole grains and the fruits and that, because like that's information that we've heard since we were kids with the food pyramid, and now that we're hearing with the My Plate and all sorts of information that comes out in different publications. I like to dial down to like what the impact of eating like that is versus what the impact of eating differently than that is, and like looking at what diseases come out of eating certain ways if we're not moving in certain ways, what the impact like or just health conditions period, right? Like we're looking at the highest incidence of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, that we've ever seen, and we have more information than we ever had before. So I think the disconnect is not so much like the access to the information. I think it has to do with the emotional connection to the impact of living a certain way, right? So like what does it mean if you have diabetes? There are things that come with that, right? It means that there's certain things happening in our body and certain things that we can't do anymore. Like diabetes is also a symptom of eating habits. Same thing with most heart disease. Even like we're in a midlife guys group. Like we can talk about erectile dysfunction, right? Like a lot of these things are related to the foods that we eat and don't eat, and also whether we move or don't move enough. And I think once we really get present to the impact of that, um, then we can really start to connect with that information and utilize that information. So an example is like just visualizing the difference if you take care of yourself differently, if you make those different decisions, if you choose to eat more fruits and vegetables and maybe less of certain things. Like what does that mean? Does that mean less doctor visits? Does that mean you're on less medication? Does that mean that you're able to, like, if you have kids, play with your kids more? Like just looking at what reality feels and looks like with a different way of living first, right? So that a kind of visualization can lead to that inspiration and motivation to start making the changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I was kind of interested is thinking about it sort of like I was interpreting what you're saying as sort of like think of the impact of what you're doing and like these changes or how you're approaching things, like what's the kind of the outcome of it. It's not just as you're saying the food, but sort of why are you behaving in certain ways because you want a different outcome. And I'm curious, like with the folks that you work with, does that perspective change as they kind of enter midlife? I mean, I think about like me in my 20s, I feel like I could eat whatever I wanted, right? And I always felt fine. Or I could like, go for a run after no matter kind of what I did the night before. Like it does not the same way anymore. Like I was chasing or playing tag with my younger son 2 weeks ago and pulled like a calf muscle just out of nowhere and like couldn't walk for a day or two. I'm on that leg. I'm just like getting old is not fun. But I'm curious, like, some of those tangible impacts, does like the approach of how people when they get in their 40s, like how they should think about food, does that need to change because we're not 20 anymore? Or like how do you help people kind of navigate as their bodies are like aging to kind of better approach this type of stuff?
Yeah, I think going back to what Mike brought up earlier, it's like asking the question why. Like why are you eating this way, and why
Yeah.
would eating any differently, if that's a possibility, like what would that serve? So
Mm.
like if I'll give you an example of a client who I started working with a few years ago. His name was Peter. He was like uh, a C-level executive at an enterprise-sized insurance company, and he had played the college lacrosse, would had been really, really good shape at one point, and was now in his late 40s and had some sons that were getting to be pretty athletic, right? And he wanted to be, and a
Mm-hmm.
daughter as well, and he wanted to be able to participate with them and not feel like he was missing out and missing opportunities to spend some really quality time together with them, right? So like the nutrition and fitness work was in service of his family life and those relationships,
Mm,
because he noticed that he was missing those opportunities. And so that was like, that meant a lot to him, right? And so like for you guys and
yeah.
for the audience, it's like just thinking about what is really meaningful that you feel like you might be missing, or that would be exciting for you to be able to do, and connecting with that. And that serves as a really good launching point for like, okay, like if I want to be stronger, here are some of the things I can eat or do to be stronger. Or if I want to lose weight,
Yeah.
here are some things that I can do to lose weight. Or man, like I have really high blood pressure. What are the things that I can cut out that can alleviate my blood pressure or cholesterol, the things that might be showing up
Mm-hmm.
in biological markers, or
Right.
daily life. So if you have that idea of how you want to live, and coming up with the strategies to do that, and if you don't, like if you can't come up with the strategies yourself through discovery, then like that's why folks like me exist, is to serve as a
Right.
catalyst
Yeah.
for like helping people navigate that, because there is so much information on all different kinds of platforms about, hey, you can be
Yeah.
intermittent fasting. Well, that doesn't work for everyone, and there's a way to get into it
Yep.
that you can make work. But I think there's again, there's a lot of really good information out there. Having the emotional connection to what's really important to you, and using that as a really good navigator for what your first step should be.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear more about the approach that you take, that personalized approach that you take with each client that you work with, because I think that you bring up a really good and important point. In doing some research um, for this podcast earlier today, I got fed some bullshit ad from Claude that was like, Claude can create your, a nutrition plan for you. Why spend money with a trainer when this AI thing can do it for you? That's essentially what the ad said, and I was like,
Yeah.
no, thank you. But so yeah, so tell me the process that you take with each client to figure out what is important to them. What are the best steps to eat healthy and nutritious for them?
Sure. So, like I mentioned biomarkers earlier. So, like a lot of us get testing, and I know that you guys talked about in one of your prior podcast episodes, right? You talked about understanding what some of your health markers are, and I think Mike, you
Yep.
mentioned that there were some that you talked with your doctor about. So, like if you have a good idea of where your health is at, then we can talk about, okay, like, is your cholesterol high? Is your blood pressure high? Are there certain things within your diet that are raising certain numbers that we should be cautious about, like your LDL? How is your iron? And exploring nutrition that can help support the things that are putting you into disease risk category. But also, like, uh, I think there's a very common understanding of making change that it's got to suck, and
Mm,
there's got to be a struggle and a grind in the process. And like I, things can be really tasty, have texture, and we can be excited about food that's going to move us in the health direction that we want, right? It doesn't have to feel like an obstacle and difficult most of the time. So I think like there's a way to take steps that feels comfortable and that feels good. And that, like, to me, that's an essential part of the approach. So in other words, it doesn't need to be chicken and broccoli, and have, right, it doesn't need to be dry, it doesn't need to be flavorless. And like I have a lot of clients with really strong connections to their ethnic background, and being able to cook
mm,
and eat foods that they really enjoy and fitting that into like their life is really important. So we can work with that, absolutely. And if someone's vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian, there's so many ways to make that work. And like Mike, you mentioned Claude a little bit earlier. One of my clients actually did the same thing that you're talking about. Used Claude as a launching point, but what Claude didn't dive into was like her hunger levels. And I'm gonna include that in this conversation because I think it's really important. There's so much focus on the why and the content of what we eat that sometimes we don't think about why we're choosing to eat. And like that's why I think intermittent fasting is really interesting, is because it asks folks to explore hunger and tapping into their metabolism in a little bit different way than the kind of structured 3 meals and snacks that I certainly grew up with. But when I was in my mid 20s and very active, was borderline pre-diabetic. So understanding that we all have our individual needs and responses to certain types of foods that, even though they on the surface are healthy, may not work for us. Like for me, it was not working to have 3 meals. Well, actually, it was more like 5 meals and like 3,500 calories. Like it just wasn't working. And now I'm having two big meals that's between 4,000 and 5,000 calories a day. Like I'm pretty active, but like I'm having even more food, and my blood sugar and cholesterol is in a better place than it used to be. So like like really understanding and having some guidance from folks, like whether it's someone like me or like a nutritionist or doctor, on, hey, this is where you are with your health, and this is where it would be helpful for you to go. Here are some paths and avenues to do that. I think is really helpful. um, One of the big takeaways over the last 16 years of doing this work is that like having support is really important in the process of making those changes. We
Yeah.
have a lot of folks that around us that we can seek for support, and like there's research that shows that the support from a spouse or significant other very strongly correlates with like your success, right? It's one of the reasons why Weight Watchers, 12-step programs, and like working with like trainers or having a workout buddy is so powerful in the long run. So like to summarize some of what I just said, like look for a way to enjoy the process, right? And not struggle and suffer through it, while still embracing things that you want to include and enjoy, and find support in doing that, whether that's a significant other or someone that you think you can trust and confide in, or someone who wants to like move in the same direction that you do.
Yeah, I
You
think that
know,
support is so important. So I mean, I do think that's critical to success in probably most parts of life, right? But I think it's especially true that accountability you get there is just, it makes a big difference. I've certainly seen that, in my life, and I think that's true for a lot of people. Is having someone there with you does help make you kind of stick with it and keep up with whatever you're trying to do.
yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, and it kind of leads to the next part of this. And I'd love for you, if you want to speak on your personal journey or whatever, because one of the things that's true in midlife is that we start getting into habits, good
Yeah.
habits, bad habits. The fact of the matter is, we just we've lived long enough that we've got habits now. And breaking them can be very tough. The Johns Hopkins School of Medicine did a great study tracking 6,000 people, ages 44 to 84, for over 7 years. And those that really committed to breaking their habits decreased their risk of death by 80%. Um, and the point of that study was to really illustrate that you're never too old to break bad habits, whether it's drinking too much or eating too much, smoking, etc. So, I mean, I guess, you mentioned, a spouse or a loved one being supportive, but also the idea that, um, you know, if you've got if they've got a multicultural background or a specific type of cuisine that you really like, you don't have to, you can figure out a way to integrate that in there. But are there other tips that you have on ways to break these bad habits, since we're all becoming curmudgeony old men?
That's true.
So, Mike, like, are you willing to share maybe something that you would like to change, or would you like me to use an example of like someone that I work with?
um
Oh, I could throw something out. I know something top of mind.
Okay,
I was
yeah,
actually just thinking about
go ahead.
this. So
okay.
what, like a challenge that I have, is because I'll sometimes be is because the food is a big thing. It's just and like not snacking consistently, and that's the problem. If like there's food around
Sure.
and I just randomly feel hungry, even if I don't think I'm hungry or like I'm not doing something, I just feel like need like, oh, I need to have a quick snack. Like that is a challenge I have is how do I cut back on snacking when I really don't need to be, or make sure that if I am, I'm making a smart choice in terms of like what the snack is
Yeah.
instead of just whatever is easiest, which is usually not healthy. Like that's something I'll like go great for a couple weeks and I will completely fall off the wagon and
Okay.
then like have to start over. So I don't know if that's a good example, but that's something for sure I have trouble with is managing snacking.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. And that is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very common thing too. I remember when I was working during summers at an office. It was the summers between years at the University of Richmond, and I was going for what is it, the Pirates Booty like snacks that are coming, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
and gummies and stuff like that. And it was out of boredom.
Hmm.
And after a while, like it just didn't feel good. Like I just don't digest certain things really well, and so after a while I stopped. But
Yeah,
like it's a very common thing to do. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think a lot of listeners can probably relate to that at some point in their life and kind of going in and out of snacking. So we talked about asking the question why earlier. So like typically the first thing that I do with clients is ask them to keep a food journal. And it's not
oh,
even what
yeah.
they're eating. It's just getting them to write down what time it is and why they're
Mm,
eating. So if you're choosing to eat because you're bored, like you're going to start to recognize that, right? And
that's
if
a good
your
point. Yeah.
goal is like if you let's say you have a goal, right? If your goal is to stop snacking because you feel like and like Andrew, why do you want to stop snacking? What's the reason?
Oh, just 'cause I need to be healthier. So that's why I want to lose a little bit of weight. And I think a lot of my like not healthy habits are because I just snack. And having kids, like we have snack stuff for them. And so if I like see, I'm like, oh, I can have a couple
Okay.
of chips. And that like is
Okay.
again not a good decision on my
Okay.
part.
So like if you want to lose a little bit of weight, like not snacking is great because like snacks anywhere between like a couple hundred calories a day and maybe a little bit more over a few months do make pounds of difference, right? And
Yeah.
like that correlates with higher levels of inflammation. And again, there are other biological markers that we can uh, relate to that. So a food journal for 2 weeks where you just
Good
write
idea.
down
Yeah.
why you're eating when you're eating it. And if it's not because you're hungry in your stomach, then it's likely not going to move you in the direction of losing weight. So like using hunger as a guideline is typically what I like to start with folks with because
Hmm.
I think culturally here in America, there's a lot of habit to eat when we're not hungry, and a lot of the diseases that we're encountering and things like excess weight are a result of eating more than we need, right? So if we're
Yep.
using hunger as a guideline, we're much less likely to fall into overeating. So that food journal as a habit for like 2 weeks and then like reviewing it and being like, oh, like how much am I eating out of hunger? How much am I eating out of boredom or because I went to go
All right.
get drinks with friends and I was a little bit tipsy and we decided to get nachos and
Right.
right.
That might happen sometimes. Yeah.
So like the idea is not to be perfect and to
Right.
necessarily make changes right away because you're journaling, but to be present with why you're making the decision. And once you understand the why and you dial and you make your habits align more with the reason why, like your priorities
Hmm.
in your food and life, you'll start to naturally make changes. So like awareness is really the first step in understanding how to make the changes. And like you guys, and I think most of our audience members and most of the people I've ever worked with are intelligent enough to be like, oh yeah, that doesn't really work with what I want to do. And so
Right.
it can naturally inspire the change. So the food and drink journal I think is a really helpful tool, and you can keep it digitally or
Yeah.
handwritten, whichever works for you. I found myself doing it digitally, and a lot of clients do. It just whatever feels kind of natural and organic for you, just start taking that journal, and
Yeah.
it's something that you could do like starting after this podcast, right? Like anyone
Yeah.
listening can do that. You just start typing down in like in the notes app like, "Oh, I
Yep.
had like I'm having lunch because I'm not gonna be I'm not going to be eating until later and I'm hungry, like whatever it is. There's so many different reasons why you just
Hmm.
eat.
I'm curious, your experience, because I think you're right. A lot of people will eat out of boredom, and so keeping a journal of what you're eating is, it sounds like a great idea. What do you, how do you manage those that may be eating because they're stressed?
Mm.
'Cause that's
Sure. So same thing. If you're keeping that journal and you're writing stuff down, acknowledging that you're eating out of stress, and you understand that the food that you're eating might be causing your body additional stress, right? So like if you're, I'll share some like basic foundational like wellness information that I've learned from personal experience and like some of the coaching certifications I have. When your body is not hungry, you are less likely to digest the food well, right? It takes longer to
Hmm.
digest. Basically, your body's not prepared for taking food in. So it treats the food as a stressor. It means that the food's going to take longer to digest, right? Same thing with drinks. Um, so that can create inflammation and elevate cortisol levels. It can just cause digestive distress. So if you're stressed and you're eating out of stress, it can make you feel good in that moment. And the awareness that it can also cause you more stress and maybe in a way that you're not entirely aware of, right? You start to become aware of that stress. Um, the journaling can just helps illuminate that. And that would be like the first thing that I recommend. Also, exploring substitution habits. So if you're stressed, instead of eating, what else could you do?
Yeah,
take a walk.
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Sure. I like a lot of heavy metal, so I find ways to get certain emotions out through music, but also like I do a gratitude walk every night because I think there are ways to find peace and create peace like that. So there could be some substitution habits, and that would be my recommendation is to explore the why behind the stress, and then also find some substitution habits that could alter the way that you handle that stress in a healthier way that isn't consuming something that can create more stress in your body.
It's excellent. That's a good segue because I'd love for you to talk about kind of tie it all together
Sure.
because what we consume, of course, is, so important to our um, physical health as well as our mental health and the way we can or cannot exercise, and just the overall well-being of ourselves. So can you kind of just tie it all together for us as to, the importance of really nutrition as part of our holistic well-being?
Sure. And you're asking some great questions, Mike. So thank you for that. And I love that cardinal in the background behind you. That thing. Uh,
Cute.
so yeah. So for anyone listening, really start to examine your why. And like a journal is a good way to get aware of the things that might be causing you stress or things that you really want to prioritize. Right. So build awareness first and like coming up based on that awareness, building it for a few weeks, coming up with a strategy that's going to serve you. And sometimes it could be adjusting how much you're eating. It could be adjusting why you're eating. It could be maybe you don't know what the next step is and you decide to ask like a nutritionist or a health coach or a trainer for advice, right? Uh, and also just seeing what support you might need, right? So build the awareness, come up with a strategy and approach and find support for that approach. Like if you take those steps, you're going to be so much more likely to succeed. I think there's a very strong tendency, especially in the literature surrounding habits. Like I read Atomic Habits, I read The Power of Habit, and I think there's a very individualistic approach. So just not forgetting that we are not alone and that also we are doing this for more than just ourselves. There are people that we work with, our family members, our friends that are impacted by the way that we show up. And our health is part of that. Everything is intertwined. And so I think honoring and appreciating the people around us is part of that process.
I mean, I think you've given a lot of awesome tips, Andrew, and I like how positive you've been about all of this, which is very helpful because sometimes it can seem daunting to me, and I feel like others might feel the same, right? You kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, like changing habits, kind of focusing on better behavior, analyzing that why can be a positive thing. But can you maybe give us like a 30-second little pep talk, or like that you've seen midlifers have been able to make those changes? I want to be kind of positive, like really extra positive at the end here, because it'll help me selfishly, but I think it'll probably help our audience too. But I mean, have you seen people who have successfully changed their habits, stuck with them, had good results, and is it something that is doable for a lot of us?
Yeah, I will give a shout out to you guys, because and Braxton again, like once I learned about this podcast, I put a reminder in my calendar to listen to this podcast. So that's a new habit that I developed.
Oh, thanks.
That's a new habit that I developed, and like that required a structure, right? So my structure that supports the habit is putting it in my calendar as a reminder, right? So if you feel like there's something that's important to you, like, and you have a way of creating the things that you do in your life, like a calendar is a really nice way to do that. And if you just put one thing on
Yeah.
your calendar a day, right? Like maybe it's doing the food journal, maybe it's just one thing a day that moves you in that direction. Like just do one thing a day. Just start with one thing. It doesn't have to be a big ask. Like we're not changing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like it could be even just like, all right, I'm going to replace a high starch dinner with some more vegetables. Like that's just one thing, right? Like think small, think manageable, think easy. Because if it's easy, you're much more likely to do it. If it's enjoyable, you're much more likely to do it. So if it feels heavy and you're struggling with the idea of doing it, simplify, right? So like just
Yeah.
make it easy, and have fun with it. So, and if you don't know how to have fun with it, then just have conversations with people, right? Professionals, friends who've made those changes. Again, like there's so many resources about how to make it fun and food delicious and colorful, and the way that I feel like life should be, just vibrant and enjoyable. So that's a great question, Andrew.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. That was a
Yeah.
good answer too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate it, Andrew Duffy. Thank you so much for being here. Yet again, I had to qualify. All these Andrews around. All right.
Aren't you lucky?
I know. So we've already blown through 30 minutes. If you've not done so already, please like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us out a lot. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. And until next week, good luck, guys.
See ya.